Okay guys, this is my add-on video to my two-part orc skin series. You guys had asked, Josh, quarter paint the rest of the orc. So that's what we're doing. So I had a quick picture of where we left off in the last series, and this is where we're headed at the end of this video. Okay, we're going to start with some base coating. Some Rhinox Hide for the pants. Going to apply that quickly. Most of the first part of this video is doing some base coating. I like to start that way on all my miniatures. I think it just helps with speed. Then we pull out the Doombull Brown, and we're actually going to pass this through the airbrush and do kind of a hobby cheating and pop in a quick top-down highlight. Next, the Stormvermin fur, again with the airbrush. I like taking this step because these add some visual interest to some of the larger surfaces. Does it very quickly, so it allows for horde armies like orcs to kind of add in something a little extra, and some of these highlights will get knocked back with the wash and it'll be a lot more subtle, but it gives me a nice color transition to kind of work from going forward. Then we're going to use the Steel Legion Drab and the Leadbelcher just to map in the straps and all of the metal bits. Again, this is all just base coating work. You just want to be kind of painting in the lines here. I didn't shoot it, but just a little Mephiston Red there. For any of the colored armory bits, I like to do a quick little Leadbelcher dry brush. Now it's time to bring out the Agrax Earthshade. I'm usually, again, pretty liberal with my washes. Probably could be a little more careful, but I just put it on heavy and pull out the pooling. Again, this is all kind of base work to work on top of. And here's a quick turnaround of what it looks like once the wash is dry. Alright, now we're going into detailing. So we're going to be doing the straps. I am using Zandri Dust here and a fine brush and adding in essentially what is a edge highlight on these straps. What can be a real challenge about this is there's no real edge to run your brush along for these straps, so you're basically carefully drawing in these edge highlights. I think this just sort of gives some definition to the straps. And so I had to change my camera angle to actually paint this and get this on camera. But I'm starting with something that I like doing, where this textural hatching on the leather strapping. I actually did a tutorial for this on Instagram, but I wanted people to get a chance to kind of see it in action. I basically start with the Zandri Dust, and then I'm now going in with a lightened Zandri Dust, which has some Pallid witch flesh in it. You can see I'm not perfect with it, but it creates this sort of hatched textural look. And again, we're going to come in with a little bit of a wash in some of the recessed areas to just kind of smooth this out a little bit. Not as truly as a wash, but kind of glaze of color. Actually come back and just clean up the edges with a little black. Then you can see the Seraphim Sepia. I like to go to the kind of like the recessed areas, like where the belts meet another spot, is where I kind of come in with a little glaze of the Seraphim. I think this adds a nice little color transition. It smooths out the hatching a little bit, adds some visual interest, kind of punches up the leathery yellow kind of strap look. Alright, and I actually did all the straps this way, so I'm just giving you a little look. Alright, so I'm going to do the cloth with the Mechanicus Standard Grey. Again, I like to take a textural approach to painting the orcs. I feel like they lend themselves to that. So for my highlighting on the edges of the cloth, I tend to like to do these little kind of ripped streaks. You can see in the model there's already rips kind of modeled into it, but I like to accentuate that a little bit with the paint. I actually did his boots too, all the black, just a little bit of that standard Mechanicus, but then I came back with some Pallid witch flesh mixed into the standard Mechanicus, again a second highlight, just doing kind of a fine punch up on the edges itself, letting it be kind of a little rough, dotting it in. It's not like this perfectly smooth highlight that you'd see on a Space Marine or something like that. A little texture goes a long way on an orc. And I'll do that for all the black areas, you know, his gloves, his boots. Even though his boots are going to get dusted, it's really important to paint it up to a full quality for that dust effect to actually look decent. Okay, so coming back with the Ironbreaker, that's kind of like the step up. I'm going to use eventually a sponge piece here, something you can get at the craft store. Going to use it here with tweezers. I think it gives you a little bit more control. You rip it off, dip it into the Ironbreaker, and this is where, again, you add a textural effect to some of the metal bits. Trying to be real careful here, but you can almost highlight with the sponge while adding some texture that you can kind of work over afterwards. I quickly edit it to the metal bits in the back. Alright, so I'm going to start working on the reds here. I have the 3 reds, the Mephiston, the Evil Sunz, and the Wild Rider. It's really important to keep your paints really thin. You can see I'm almost kind of like working over the metallic that I laid into it, but you can see with its thin, it just sort of tints the color, and as you work in those thin layers, this doesn't take that long, but as you step up the colors, it gives some nice gradation and some color transition. It also kind of looks like the metal's a little bit worn. So, you know, start with the Mephiston, step up to the Evil Sunz, and putting that closer to some of the edging. And the final step will come back with the Wild Rider, and that's really kind of the edge highlight. I will add in some scratching. If you don't feel like things are too bright or the transitions aren't nice, you can like thin down the Mephiston and come back in with kind of a couple of little glazes over that transition area and just kind of smooth things out. But the Wild Rider really, you know, when that goes in there, it kind of punches up those edges a little bit. Like I said, you can start adding in scratching with that, and again, it gives that visual interest. I think orcs lend themselves to having a lot of texture. This is the same approach that I'll take with most armor pieces on orcs. I came in with a little bit of black to enhance the scratches, and I'll even come in with a little bit of Ironbreaker again to maybe kind of put in some like chipped or worn pieces, just real quick. I'm actually using the black there to just kind of black line some of the rivets and bolts. Okay, so we're going to do kind of the muzzle burn effect on the gun. This isn't actually how I do my Shooter boys, but this is how we're doing this guy, and I wanted to show this effect because it is something I do in a bunch of my other orc guns. So, started with the Drakenhoff Nightshade on the tip of the gun, again after I had sponged with Ironbreaker, then came in with the Carroburg Crimson while everything's still wet, and then the Seraphim Sepia, and just kind of lay those 3 down, and they sort of kind of blend themselves into each other. Alright, well, while that was drying, I decided I wanted to punch up the pants a little bit, so I'm just glazing some more Doombull Brown. It's not like a true glaze, but keeping it nice and thin, just wanted to punch up the leather effect on the pants. Again, having that base highlight that I laid down with the airbrush really helps in that process to get it looking good. Alright, so here's the Badland base that we're going to put them on. I always do this to my orcs. It's kind of become like a signature thing, but I dust up their feet with some Zandri Dust to really kind of plant them in the base, to make them feel like they're kind of trouncing around in the dusty, dirty desert. So, using the airbrush, real light, lots of air when using it, minimal on the paint with the trigger, just kind of moving them down. It's almost like the reverse of a top-down highlight, that I'm working from bottom up, and just kind of carefully moving up the legs a little bit and the feet. If you're too heavy, you're going to cover up some of your work. I've done that many a times accidentally. And there you go. He's attached to his base. Really, the only last step is I hit him with the Vallejo matte finish. And here's a couple of finished pictures to just show what we completed. I think he came out pretty good. This is a pretty close estimate to how I work up all my orc boys and orcs in general. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to be putting together a Patreon soon. You can see I'm joking around here at the end, but if you like my stuff, follow me on Instagram, and hopefully I'll have a Patreon going. If anyone feels like donating anything, it would be great. Alright, thanks guys.